Welcome everybody, it's your boy, the Versace Stoner, with another episode of VSW.
This one's a big tune.
That's right, folks. Big news flash. Oh my God! VSW.
Brass hats know what time it is. Get up off of your seats and bow down to the king.
One of the greatest in this game, and one of my favorite all-time people in this game. The Versace Stoner.
It's places like this. I started in a mill. I'm here still in a mill. I consider myself a mill wrestler.
Welcome everybody, it's your boy, the Versace Stoner. We're here with an episode of VSW. Today we have a very special guest all the way, that's right, back from the West Virginia area. We have Nasty Nate.
Hey, thanks for having me, bro. Thanks for having me.
Very, very cool. Love breaking out of New England and, just getting to meet new people. This is great. You came with me to from Spooky Lou. I have to give him a shout out on this. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's got going on down there with EIW and all that other great wrestling action. But first we're going to talk about you, obviously. And again, thanks again for taking the time to come on my show.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure.
Can I call you Nasty Nate?
Yeah, that's fine. You call me Nate.
Okay, Nate. Okay. Let me ask you something. When did you break into wrestling? When did you get in?
Well, man, it's a long story actually, but I'll try and keep it short for you for the viewers and all. But I've been in it for a long time. When I was right out of high school, me and the guy I went to high school with and played football with, we ended up playing a little bit of college football too. And while we were there, we roomed together. And this guy was 6'8" and 330 pounds. Had the long hair and everything. This guy was born to be a wrestler. He ended up busting up his knee. And like after practices, it would swell up really bad and be the size of like a volleyball. It was crazy. But he had been training a little bit before we started playing football. And so me and him kind of talked and we were going to do our thing. And, I was a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2", 240 pounds. And he was obviously huge. So we were going to do our thing together. And that's what kind of inspired me to like get into the business. And I kind of bounced around and did a lot of other stuff, man. I've kind of just been in the mud, just grinding really. But so here recently, I got a hold of Lou, and me and him go way back, and he started telling me about these things that he's been doing, and I kind of got back into it a little bit. But I've been involved with wrestling wherever I can, anytime that I can, for practically my entire life.
That's really cool. Really, really cool. I'm another one. I started watching wrestling at a very young age, and I just got hooked. I got hooked to the TV. Wrestling, and then I ended up taking some breaks from TV wrestling, and that's when I kind of explored other. I explored that there was a whole nother world out there, and that's of indie wrestling. And like it was, growing up as a kid, we had indie wrestling. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't like I just discovered it one day, but it was very different when I was a kid. It was mostly to draw in. We didn't know about like any of the local people. It was. We would go there to see the Joint the Clown. We would see, the WCW rap. We were there for the one-ups. We weren't there to see any of the locals. We didn't even know them. We wouldn't even see them again for another year. If, the 90s was kind of weird for me for indie wrestling. And I didn't even think of anything of it in the early 2000s. Until, probably like 2016, 17. Me and a friend were doing another project, and it ended up, transpiring into wrestling. And we started looking around. And I noticed there was all these companies running locally. I'm like, gotta check it out. And it kind of got me back into wrestling as a whole. But So I take it as a kid, you obviously you wanted to be in this. And was there anybody that like really kind of like drew you in? That you would watch on TV and be like, I want to be this guy. I want to be, do what he's doing.
Man, Ric Flair. Ric Flair, hands down, easily. So in the '90s is when I was in high school. So coming up, the first time I was ever exposed to wrestling was I was 8 years old. I went to a friend's birthday party, and he had a sleepover, and they had the double VHS cassette of WrestleMania 4.
Oh, my favorite. That's the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. And from that point on, I was hooked. It was the end of it. In my backyard, I would put ropes out there, and me and all the neighborhood kids that I went to elementary school with, we would have our matches. And I mean, I was out there putting kids in a figure four right then, and I had to get it perfect because I knew what it looked like. So I can definitely relate to all that. But Ric Flair, by all means, is the GOAT for me. Everything that he's ever done is putting people over. You look at his classic spots, it's him taking bumps. I mean, you don't get no better than that.
Most definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was just thinking about that the other day, how, wrestling used to like bring a lot of people together because there would be, if you didn't catch it on pay-per-view, and most people didn't at a young age because, who would even know unless you were really into it and your parents could get to it, you would often miss it. Because, a lot of things back then were so much different. People were actually, outside doing a lot of activities. Sundays were family days. It was hard to, like, coordinate everything. So you would miss it. So you wouldn't get to really watch it again until it would hit, the VHS. Until it would, end up in somebody's hands. And then, your friends and all would all gather around together and, would watch it almost if it was, like, on TV live. And, and I remember vividly, I'd go to the VHS, the video store, and just, that one there, the double cassette, I probably won theirs out because that was probably one of my favorite WrestleManias growing up as a kid because it was the longest one they had. It just always intrigued me that it was 2 tapes and not one.
Yeah.
And I was a big Randy Savage fan, and seeing him, just do everything that he did in that, it was awesome. But Flair, I was introduced to Flair, through WWE. It's funny. I wasn't much of a WCW fan growing up. I didn't really get into it. I felt there was a little bit more catered towards the NWA crowd, which is fine. It was just more technical. And I was more into, the showmanship, the Hogan. And then when Undertaker came and, all that kind of jazz that went along with that. But when
in your Northeast territory, in the Northeast too, WWE was huge then. I mean, that's the home base.
Yeah. So when I got introduced to Flair, he came into the WWE and we were just, I don't know, I was amazed because he came in with the WCW belt and it was just so much bigger, shinier, and better than the WWFs at the time. And they would actually like blur it out so you couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
He was going on that he was the real world champion. It was the first time, and it actually got me to watch WCW. So I was like, wait, what's this?
Yeah.
And then I went back and started watching Flair. I'd go back to the video cassette store and, rent a few more. They would have Starcades and stuff. And I would get back into that. And from then on, I did become a fan of Flair. And, he gets a lot of heat for a lot of things. But in ring, you're right. He puts a lot of people over. And even in that whole storyline, it was to make Randy Savage look wonderful. And to give him, to give him his mania moment because, that year it wasn't Hogan. Hogan wasn't the main star. Hogan was just doing, the Sid Justice thing.
That and that you're talking about the WrestleMania 8 with Flair and Savage. Yeah. Oh man, that was an epic match too. I mean, Flair's entire hair was red from the blood. I mean, and I heard that backstage he wasn't even supposed to ever get color or anything, and he just did it on his own. I heard McMahon was mad about that.
Yeah, they didn't really want him, but he was just like, that was him, and that's what he wanted to do. And he had the blonde hair, and he knew that it would contrast, and it would just always get a pop, and that's just what it was. I mean, and that match was pretty brutal looking back at it compared to like, because you don't see that now, because there is no really blading. So if it happens, it happens. But back then, guys weren't afraid just to gush during the match. It was crazy.
Unless it's a John Moxley match.
Very true. Very, very true. So, you're doing this whole thing, and so did you end up going into a wrestling training school? You ended up training. You ended up doing all that, and just like you said, kind of just bouncing around the industry.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was in high school, in the '90s, it was in Oak Hill, West Virginia, down south, and we had a local show at the Armory that would be there weekly. That was a local indie kind of thing, and they sold beer out there, and um, I'm trying to think how I can describe it. Oak Hill, West Virginia is not a very big town, but it is like the biggest town in the county, and it's a different kind of breed of people down there, so it would get really rowdy, and that was in the days where there'd be fights in the parking lot between the fans. Sometimes the talent would be involved. Like, it got pretty out of hand. So right after high school, I was trying to play ball and doing that kind of thing. And once that kind of stopped, then I started branching out into other avenues of entertainment and all that. And always wrestling was something that I was dabbling in the entire time, no matter what. So I would come in and do little spots and help out with different feds and things like that, but nothing really major. I spent some time doing music and promoting my music thing for a while. So that was that, and some guys that I was working with and helping out. So I've dabbled and had my hands in a lot of things. I'm a hustler, man.
Yeah, that's the cool thing I think, about wrestling people in general. Like, whether it is, the wrestlers themselves or whatever in the industry, I find them all to be very creative, and they all have these great outlets to be able to do, make music, make masks, make art, make whatever it is. They're always
Yep.
got the grinds going. It's great. It's great to see that much creativity because it comes back into whatever the product is too. Um,
One of the things I think that's coolest about wrestling is with everybody's gimmicks and things, it's kind of like each character, if you want to call it that, or each superstar is kind of like its own glimpse into like the human experience. You know what I mean? Every demographic of person kind of gets their representative in the ring, So I think that's one of the dopest things about it by far.
They do. They really do. You can bring yourself in there, or you can even bring what you want yourself to be, or like the best version you think of yourself as.
Yep.
You might be really good, but now in wrestling, you can be even better than that because you have the whole kayfabe factor. So you can go, beyond that. You can take it to any ridiculous level you want. It's wrestling. That's the
Absolutely.
I've seen people take gimmicks as far, to the moon, and it's wonderful to see that kind of creativity flow. Because it's all just is creativity flow, and it's all coming, but it is all coming from the inside. It is all, like a representation of these people. Another cool thing I do like to see, and I'm seeing it more often around here, is wrestlers that they'll go in. They're known in the area for their role, and it's cool. But now they go into a separate promotion, and they play a totally different character, totally different name, totally different gimmick. It's pretty cool to see them kind of play off of that,
Yeah.
and not be the same.
No, for sure, for sure. Have you got a chance to catch very many of the extreme independent wrestling promos that's been going on?
I have been seeing some, and we are going to get into that because you're going to be in the IW. I've been told.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in there. I'm looking for clients right now, trying to find somebody good that's wanting to go to the top and not afraid to do whatever it takes, man. I'm trying to just get there by any means.
So your role in the IW will be manager then?
Yeah, yeah. That's so not too long ago, about a couple years back, I crushed my ankle. A bone almost went through the skin. I got to have foot surgery before I can even think about doing anything like that. So, like, it kind of even sits crooked a little bit still. So yeah, it's going to be a while before I can think about getting into the ring, but that's something I wouldn't mind doing. But it's definitely it's coming, but it's going to be a while.
Yeah, it's probably sorry to hear that. Hopefully, it's just a speedy, easy recovery. But that's the thing, wrestling and just in general, regardless, you have to have I don't know how to say it. You have to be in good shape. You can't just kind of go in there and
Yes.
just kind of, think you can do it because you have the mentality. If your body can't do it, you're not going to be.
Yes. Your cardio is huge. You got to be out there running like Rocky.
Yeah, and I have a weird kind of story. When I got out of high school, I wanted as much as anybody in the world to be a pro wrestler. I went all the way, to Killer Kowalski School, which was local to me. I went up in there, and you know what he said to me? He said, "No, you're all set, guy. You're 5'8". You're way too short for pro wrestling. Get out of here." And I left. There was nothing I could do at that point in the era. And that was we're talking like '01. Brock Lesnar's on the scene almost. You got
Yeah.
these guys. Wrestling was about big men then, and they only
Yeah.
wanted big men. Now, if you fast forward it to today's era, or even 10 years from then, when like Eddie Guerrero and those guys started entering and really getting big, and then maybe I would have had a shot, but back then it was different. So I went into boxing and amateur boxing and did that for a while.
Yeah, there you go.
And the same thing with that. You have to train. You have to. It might be only a 9-minute little bout. With the minute interval, but you gotta like train for like hours on end to get into that shape because once the mentality gets there, it's like
Every 30 seconds in the ring is worth like 2 miles of running. Like it's you gotta put in that work.
Fast forward, I got some training later on in pro wrestling, not a lot. Some friends showed me a few things. I did some, they had some fantasy camps at New England Pro, which is kind of where they took over the Killer Kowalski School. So I went there for a day, learned some things, learned ropes, learned basic bumping, all that fun stuff. And so I did a few things, helped a few friends do a few matches, and it's the same thing. Like if you're not, it might look easy, you can do it, but again, once you get in and you start running the rope and whatever's going on, you get winded so fast if you're not conditioned for it. And that's the same thing with your body. If your body's not 100%, if you don't think you can take the bump, if you're gonna get more injured, you can't do it.
Yep. Yeah, you put the person you're in there with at risk for sure, and that's the number one no. I do believe is you don't want to hurt anybody, let alone yourself.
No, definitely not.
I'd rather hurt myself. I'd rather hurt myself than the person I'm in there with, for sure. Did you catch at Crown Jewel that almost mishap with Ray and Logan Paul?
Yeah, I did. That was scary. Very, very scary. Kudos to Logan Paul though for being able to do that, especially not being even in the business a long time. He was able to catch that, change it, and change the course of what could have happened.
Yeah.
But again, that just goes to show you, even at the most highest professional level, with the most greatest bets,
it could happen. Yeah, it could definitely happen. Cardio is so huge, and even beyond that, like it's one thing to have the cardio to be able to do the moves and do everything that you're supposed to, but having that extra wind to put that little something extra on it, which is what the business is designed to do. You also need to perform. You need to be able to interact with the crowd. You need to be able to put that little something extra on it. And you got to be in extra shape to be able to do that. I mean, that's why you see the guys that are on the professional level that are so ripped and in such good shape for the most part.
Well, yeah, plans can change mid-match. If you see the crowd kind of going one way, one way or the other, you change things. You change the way things go. Maybe the match goes longer. You have to kind of be prepared for it to go, an extra 2 hours almost if you wanted to, because there is a lot of variations that could happen. Things that you never even thought of. Just like I said, being that intuitive, though, being able to read the crowd, read the fans, see what they want, and be able to execute that, you have to be in that shape, though. You have to be that well prepared.
Absolutely. And our head trainer for EIW and RSW, Gannon Green, he stresses that every time you show up for training. We go through calisthenics and cardio and stuff to begin every session. He's really big on that, and making sure that everything's done the right way and done safely for everybody involved, and also to be able to put that extra on it. I mean, that's stressed also, even in practice, because you play how you practice, you know.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So you're in the RSW training over there then.
Yeah. I've been since I got the introduction through Spooky Lou, and so since then I've just been kind of like working the ropes and seeing, you know, what they do and how they do it there. So I haven't really like fully unleashed myself on them. They don't know what kind of animal they're dealing with yet. But yeah, they've been showing me how they like to do things and what they want, and then I'm just kind of taking that and putting my own spin on it, and we're about to do some big things, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what's leading into it. You know, you got EIW coming up, and like I said, in that aspect, you're looking for clients, you're looking for people to join your team. And why should they join you though? What can you bring to the table that anybody else can't?
Man, it's by any means necessary. I don't care what needs to be done. If I need to take the bullet for the team to get over the top, that's what's going to happen. If I need to step in and get involved, that's what's going to happen. If I need to pull some strings on the back behind the scenes, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to the top, man. I'm 42 years old. I don't have time to be waiting around. So it's time to make up for some lost time. See, I should have been back in it. If I would have started back when I was 20 years old and not played ball and did everything, I'd be up there with Cena right now. But you know, I chose the path that I chose, and to everybody out there, I want to say I'm sorry. I definitely owe you an apology for denying you of that greatness. But that's what it is now, and that's what I got to live with. So I'm just gonna do is what I can right now, man.
Those are bold words, I have to say, and I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, you gotta, you got in this, you gotta, be have some conviction what you say, and I could tell, you mean business here, and that's great. And I think, is there anybody right now in there or that's been announced on the roster you're kind of like eyeing or scouting?
Well, yeah. I have seen a few. We have this guy from a different training academy that's come through. His name is Muscles, and man, he's gonna be a stud. He's a young kid. His work looks phenomenal. He looks great. He's in great shape. Obviously, we call him Muscles, so you know that says something. So he's one to keep an eye on. Anthony Rucker looks like a blue chip prospect. I'd like to see what's going on with him, but I don't know. He's a little bit squeaky clean for me right now, so I don't know if he'd really want to ride with my team. But respect to him and his work. He's been putting in a lot of work, and there's a lot of other ones out there too. So it's just a matter of me doing my own networking and getting in there and face to face and seeing, you know, who I can vibe with and who can click with me and trying to put together a winning combination.
Now let me ask you though, almost a reverse of that. Is there anybody there that you're seeing kind of as an obstacle or gonna stand in your way right now that you need to kind of eliminate?
Uh, yeah, I would say so. There's a few people that occupy some similar lanes. I at the For now, at the need of being diplomatic, I feel like I just need to not mention names. But there are some people in some similar lanes, and you know, I just need to show my worth on that level as well, and that's definitely going to happen without any question. Um, but there also, you know, you never know what's going to be the opposition on the road to the top, too. So it's just a matter of there's always going to be somebody in that way when you're climbing each obstacle and trying to level up to each next level. So I'm ready to take on whatever. I've been in the mud my whole life, man. So it's nothing to me. I've been around ex-cons and anything you could imagine, brother.
That's great. That's great. Like I said, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed you're coming in this, First thing you said you're injured, but you're still coming in, with this attitude that you're gonna just, it doesn't even matter what other people are doing really right now at this point. You're still gonna shine through and just, take you and whoever else with you to that top. And I mean, it's gonna mean gold eventually or whatever that top means to you. To most guys, it means a title, but this thing's bigger than a title, believe it or not.
Yeah, on some levels, yes, but I think you got to have that gold around your waist for the legitimacy. It's like you said, it's the number one thing. That's what you want. But there are a little bit more to it for sure. There is a little bit more to it. I'd like to have a pretty good crew around me that where we lock down every division. That's ultimately where I want to be. Now that's something that doesn't happen overnight by all means, but
be that dominant stable there and kind of, if you look at past, big stables, you got things like NWO, DX. When I grew up, they were, watching as a kid, meaning, we had like Heenan family. That was one of my favorites. They had, you would have, Andre the Giant, you'd have these big dangerous folks, and then you would have some, other guys that were kind of on their way up, but they weren't as big as these guys, but they were still solid wrestlers.
Right.
And these other guys would kind of protect them and keep people away. And then, like I said, the Attitude Era, we just got, hammered with great factions, basically. You had NWO, the NWO splitting up to the Wolfpack. Plus, you had DX, you had Corporation, Corporate Ministry after that.
Oh, yeah. The Ministry of Darkness got insane. Like, they really put some boundaries on that thing, man.
That was a storyline that really got me too, because I'm a big horror fan. And anytime I see, wrestling times horror, I'm just glued to it. And they did such a great job giving you that, like, kind of airy feel. Undertaker played a great role. And, just the McMahons themselves just played very good camera roles for that. And just having, Vince B, it was me, and the daughter being kidnapped, and just, like you said, blurring those lines of really what can we push and how far can we take it.
Yeah.
You couldn't get away with probably any of it today.
Yeah, it was a different time, man. It was a different time.
It was. Important time, yes, and I see people trying to recreate it. I'm not one to recreating errors. If its time has passed, it's passed. You just take kind of the best of it, because it's passed for a reason. That's just how I look at it. But there is a lot of greatness out of that. That kind of was just some of it, going back as cringy, and some of it is like, oh my god. But
yeah,
a lot of it, if you take a lot of the acting and kind of just the storylines and just like I said, being on that, at that time, I was perfect demo for what they were pushing, the product.
Oh, yeah.
They marketed that young team to, young age adult. When I would go to shows, it was all, young adults, 21, 22, 23. They really marketed it out to that. And then they kind of
honestly, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to piggyback on that because that's something that I've picked up on. See, wrestling, when I got into it, I was young, like I said earlier, and wrestling has kind of aged along with me and my age group. And it sounds like you're not too far off. If we sound like we're pretty close in age. Like when I was
42, I just turned 40, so we're right there. We're right there.
When I was a teenager, they started showing a lot more TNA and stuff like that on wrestling and got way more edgy and like with the suck it and all that. Like that's perfect for teenage boys, And then as it gets a little bit older and we start to have kids and all that, then they start going PG again. And it just seems like it's just kind of like it's progressed along with our generation specifically in a way that's really kind of odd. I feel like
it is. It's almost like Vince was like, okay, we're gonna do WrestleMania 1. Let's get all the kids and get all their information and let's demo them, and that's it. We're just gonna keep going from these people, and it's almost what he did. I do get kind of spooky at times. I'm like, well, wait a minute, when I was, younger, it was like cartoon era, and they brought in these cartoon-like characters, and it was funny. But going back now, WrestleMania 9 was terrible. As a kid, it was awesome.
Yeah, no, I loved it too.
You know, but going back, it's like people hate it, but you got to remember, as like a 9, 10-year-old, it's great. And then
I think the
that
finish in
program,
The WrestleMania 9 finish had a lot to do with that.
they did, but you got to remember, growing up as a kid, Hogan was pushing our faces as being the good guy. And again, if you were a Hogan
Relentlessly.
person, well, you were happy to see Hogan take one more title. You didn't know the backside of the story. We didn't get the inside scoops. There
I was
was
a big Bret
this.
Hart fan. Man, I was such a big Bret Hart fan. It crushed me. I was like, yeah, Bret's gonna get his good run. Everybody's run was cut a little bit shorter than what Hogan's run was during that era. Like the
It
Warrior
was.
didn't get a full year. Bret Hart didn't even win the title at WrestleMania or a big pay-per-view. He won it at a dark match that they just like put pictures of on the magazine and stuff about.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, as a kid, I was kind of, like I said, I was kind of a Hogan fan. Then, WrestleMania for me was always like Hogan, Hogan, Hogan. Then, they kind of transitioned to Bret. I like Bret, don't get me wrong, but I was happy to see Hogan come in there. Of
no,
course,
that's fine.
later on down the line, I would obviously read, Hogan came basically in and was just like, I want the title, I'm going to do like, and just basically, backstage politics his way through it and did ruin many storylines,
It's not going to work for me, brother.
You had a lot of issues probably stem from that. And then, coming after that, you had the Bret Hart, the Lex Luthers, that was kind of a bum thing that happened too with the whole SummerSlam. I was so excited.
Oh,
I thought
God.
he was going to win it. I really did. I was a big Lex Express person.
Yeah, no, they were pushing that so hard.
Because you would go along with it. They had stuff as a kid that was breaking out of a ring. So when you would see them on the USS Intrepid, you'd be like, well, wow. It's not just about wrestling ring. It's something bigger than that.
Yeah.
They really captivated us as kids. And like I said, when we got older and they kind of upped the ante and, added in that, the sexuendos and all the other mature audience stuff, it just kind of fit.
Yeah.
And now coming back, I do have a son. I watch it with him, and it's fine to watch. But I couldn't, I don't think I would let him watch any of the Attitude Era stuff.
Yeah, you got to pick and choose. I think it's starting to come full circle, and that's one thing that I think I'm really gonna enjoy about being a part of EIW is we're trying to put together something that is gonna have what I refer to as like more of an HBO feel. Like if wrestling was on HBO and they were producing it, what would you expect to see? Something along those kind of lines. And so it's going to have the matureness to it. It's going to have those accents. But also we're going to try and wrap it up with some good, like, artistic storytelling as well, and just try to like fully mature the entire experience where you're gonna get some blood and guts and gore, man. You're gonna get that. Life is rough, life is raw. So
almost a modern day ECW.
That is actually the exact type of thing that we want to go for. This is kind of an homage to ECW in a way, and we're going to put our own spin on it. And like I said, down here in West Virginia, man, it's a different breed of animal. We grow up a little rougher, so it's getting rough in the ring is not going to be anything for some of these guys for sure. They've been doing it all our lives. We fight and roll around in the gravel for fun as kids around here.
See, that's what I love about the different territories and different areas because, like I said, you meet different people and you do have different styles. Some are more, strong style and more, physical, and others are like, oh no, don't do that.
Down here,
it's like, no, I was just working normal. No.
Down here we get gritty. We get gritty around here.
It's going to be interesting. I was telling Lou the other day that I'm hoping to get down in 24 and kind of check things out. I haven't been down there. I haven't got to see any live shows. I would like to watch, RSW. That's another great promotion I've heard about down there. And see what is going on with EIW. That being kind of a tribute to ECW, I really can appreciate that. And I, growing up, and again, that right time period, ECW dropped.
Yes.
Had done a little bit, younger, I probably wouldn't have cared, but it just hit me at the right time. So I got hooked on, watching that. And that was, the even more mature wrestling at the time. Where you would have the little bit more violence and extreme and sometimes swears and other things. And if you went to the show, it'd be insane.
Yeah.
But that kind of got lost in a lot. WWE took that product and just kind of, just washed it away and made, a joke, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a lot of the reason why I want to be involved with wrestling so much now. Is what I see on TV just is not a very good product to me. And for other people that enjoy it, if that's great for you, and that's fine, and no judgment, maybe a little, but not totally. But to me, the WWE product is just too. It's a show in a can. Everything is formulaic. It's so over scripted. You can tell that they have to read their lines verbatim. There's nothing organic about it. Their production is fantastic. The TV quality is fantastic. Their camera angles, they get all the right shots. They put stuff together. It's great. But I think they've just been able to coast for so long that they don't really have to, push themselves to see what they can do. And the other hand,
like I tell people, like Disney made some pretty Star Wars films. They're very pretty, great effects. But are they comparable to the originals 3? No, probably not.
That's a major hell no.
And that's kind of the same where wrestling is. Is it pretty looking? Yes, it's the best technology that probably pro wrestling has. They got the best ring, the best lights, the best video cameras. They got the top-notch quality, but it is kind of just, let's just keep pushing content. If we lose people, guess what? They'll fall back on what we had 20 years ago, and they'll just keep watching it. And that's what they have. They have such a library of memories, whether it's the 80s, 90s, or 2000s that you're in love with. You don't have to like wrestling today to be a WWE fan. You can just go back and watch old stuff and still enjoy it. And that's kind of where they got everybody. And it's fine. It's very smart if you think about it. They've made a library that's for everyone. There's something in there for everyone. If you want to watch the John Cena era and John Cena era only, you can go and do that.
They got such a large machine going that it just kind of runs on its own now. But at this point, it seems like. And on the other end, you have AEW that gives a lot of freedom to their talent, which is a great thing. But it doesn't always, work out too well, and it falls flat, and it makes the product look pretty bad in some cases. I don't watch AEW. I catch it sometimes, but I'll be honest, most of what I get from AEW is from Jim Cornette's podcast.
Yeah, when AEW first got launched, I was very excited. We had an alternative to wrestling finally since whenever. I was bummed when Vince bought everything up. I thought that even if he owned it all, he should have kept everything separate. Leave WCW running, leave ECW running. Don't even tell anybody you own it. Keep the rosters the same. Just run 3 separate products. You don't, keep the war going. Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but that would have been kind of cool. That would have been brilliant.
Keep wrestling separate and keep their audiences different. I like the variety. So when they condensed it just to one product, I was kind of bummed. Yeah, okay, they brand split it, but it was still the same on both shows.
Right.
The other Impact, and all these others, they're great, but they weren't TV quality great. AEW came along and all of a sudden offered something that was supposed to be, equivalent, maybe even better. In
theory, I think it could have been.
Unfortunately, backstage politics again. People that don't probably, and I can't say it depends how much the wrestlers had say in what was going on. I can understand some of them were owners and CEOs and so forth, but that puts almost a conflict of interest because you're also in the ring, you're also performing, and it can be very messy. And unfortunately, a lot of the messiness got leaked and out into the public, and the world got to see the messiness, and it just made the AEW very unorganized looking.
Yeah,
a glorified indie show.
That's exactly, if you look back, that's what took down WCW as well. is when the talent started getting so much say in the creative. And you have that conflict of interest, like you said. It's a slippery slope, and it's going to get the ball rolling downhill real fast. I think whoever's in charge and leadership makes a big difference. I mean, obviously, with WWE, you've had the stalwart of the industry that's been holding it down forever. That gives them that stability, that consistency, and everything that comes along with it. And Tony just doesn't seem like he's that hard of a character that's gonna put down, boundaries and lines and also say, no, this isn't gonna happen, and people respect him enough to not do it.
No, that's the thing. I mean, he's not as business savvy as, let's say, an Eric Bischoff coming in and taking over WCW. He doesn't have that. He seems to me like the ultimate fan.
Yeah, which is
He's a
cool.
party dude to me. I mean, I see him. I just
Yeah.
want to see party dude. I want to smoke weed with the guy. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see him as this businessman like Vince McMahon has established himself to be. Granted, when I grew up, I didn't even know Vince owned the business. I knew him as a commentator, and I thought that right until it broke. That whole Bret Hart thing. I didn't know. I never followed the business end of wrestling. I liked the showship. But growing up, he was very humble. He just got on the mic and just talked. You would never know.
Yep.
Tony Khan's a little bit flashy, in my opinion. I think he thinks he has something good, which he does, but the way he presents it and the way that he pushes it, sometimes it's just off and it's offsetting. And I wish it wasn't like that, because I do watch AEW for the reason that we get a lot of New England talent getting on the show and getting on their other shows, Dark and same thing with WWE. We've gotten people that go from New England there. I mean, outside of the big names like Sasha Banks and such, we've had local people going, and even Christian Casanova went in there, not back in the pandemic, and he's been killing it on NXT, just killing it. And so many other great, guys and girls from this area. So I kind of tend just to watch and pick and choose, but it's not investment. I'm not invested in the product per se. I'm not invested in storylines, not like I was as a kid. But I'm, with the indie scene, it's different. I get invested very easily because it's right there. It's right in your grasp. And you've got people, dropping promos like Casella, throwing promos online. And we're going to show those promos at the end of this video. We're going to include them so the fans can see them. But before we wrap up, we're getting off topic a little bit. I wanted to ask you, how can people find out what's going on with you? How can they see your newest promos? Where can they find you on social media?
Okay, so you want to go, if you search up Extreme Independent Wrestling, that's where you're going to see the list of our promos. And man, there are so many guys putting out great promos, creative, anything that you can imagine. Like I've been kind of impressed from what I've seen, and hopefully, might pick up a couple clients out of those. Some of them seem pretty good. So we'll see what's going on with that. But we got a lot of good stuff going on there. If you can see it on WrestleRoni as well. You can check out any RSW social media, and that's one of the things I just wanted to touch on really quick is we have great leadership in RSW and EIW. Tim Cross provides a great amount of leadership with a wealth of knowledge. He's been promoting for 14 years now. So he knows exactly what he's doing. He serves as a consultant for EIW as well, and because he's just highly respected. So you look on any RSW social media, any EIW, Extreme Independent Wrestling social media, you'll see a wealth of talent, myself included.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And we will just have to keep some eyes on what's going on. Who's going to join your amazing team?
Yeah, you definitely got to. Hey, just to close out, if you're rolling with me, we're going to go to the top. And if not, y'all can get off my satch.
Well, there you have it, folks. There you have it. We're going to have to see all that's going to take place with EIW. Until next time, Versace Stoner out.
Now, you don't know me yet, but my name is Nasty Nate Bishop. and I've been keeping my ear to the ground on the independent scene. And see, you guys have been doing some big things around here. I respect that. And then I hear about Extreme Independent Wrestling. And they got a show on November 17th. First Blood, Last Laugh. And I'm like, whew, okay. I hit up my man Spooky Lou and I'm like, Louie, you guys got some big things going on down there, right? He said, come on down, Bubby. I was like, I'm looking for some new clients. He was like, oh, we got the new talent too. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. So I'm going to be there November 17th, First Blood, Last Laugh. Hit up Spooky Lou and give that man your money and come on down and see what he's got.
Welcome to the Kill City Cup. I got the world by the balls.